Welcome to Vibrant Voices. I'm your host, Charles Aline. Today we have French documentary filmmaker Jil Servant. This is a part one of a part two interview. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Vibrant Voices. We have a special guest, special filmmaker from France. I'm going to pronounce his name. I hope I don't mess it up. Is Jil Servant. Am I
Okay.
correct? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Fine.
documentary. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah, yeah, fine.
Okay. So Jill is a documentary director, and we're going to talk about his documentary that he made and his experience being a filmmaker in France and how his documentary was received around the world. Okay, Jill, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, hello everyone. I was born and raised in Paris, the capital of France. I studied actually in a business school called EDEC. And first, I wanted to be a producer in the music industry. But I found more job opportunities in theater production, in cultural centers, such as, for example, Tropic Atrium in Martinique, French West Indies. So why Martinique? Because my mother was born in Martinique, and actually my father is from Djibouti in Eastern Africa. So now it's almost 25 years since I've been making documentary films. So yeah, I can say today I'm 52 years old, and my latest documentary movie is called Within My Reach. In French, it's à ma portée. It's about disabled people before the Paris Paralympic Games. It was broadcasted on national French television in 2024. Why about disabled people? It's because myself, 10 years ago, I had on a shooting a very bad car crash, and so I almost lost my left hand, but I still have it, but it's no more useful like it was before. But I can still shoot and use my right hand to keep on making documentary movies.
Okay, wow. I mean, it's an incredible story that you just shared with us. So you stated that you started out in the music industry before you got into documentaries. What was that transition like? Tell us your first, like you were in the music business and you was like, okay, this is not working. I'm going to switch to movies, or it was just more opportunity, like you said, it was just more opportunities. Or were your heart more of a musician or more of a um, like love of music more so than film, and film was just an opportunity?
Mm. I didn't really work in the music industry. I really wanted to, but it was very difficult. So I had more opportunity first, so in theaters and the theater production. And I wasn't an actor, but I liked it. And so I was a business school student. It was for me my wish to be a producer and a producer in not any, but in many cultural aspects. So in music, if it was possible, but it wasn't. So in theater. And when I was in Martinique, so I said I worked in Tropic Atrium in Martinique, French West Indies. I won a film review contest It was by chance because yeah, I liked cinema. Of course, before I watched many movies at home or in cinemas, but that really changed my life to win that contest because I became a member of the youth jury in the Cannes Film Festival in 1999. And so after that experience, I decided to, yeah, be a director, try to be. And so I studied again how to make movies and especially documentary movies because I thought it was easier to start like that. So I loved so much documentary movies that actually I remained in that branch of film.
Okay, that's really great. What was your experience like once you started your first, once you did your first documentary? What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was not so easy. It was not very difficult, but yeah, yeah. When I had the opportunity to be with a team with so a cameraman and a sound engineer for my first shooting. It was in Martinique. The name of the it was for the TV, so it was broadcasted on in Martinique first and after in France. It's the name of the movie is Seasickness. So in Martinique, so it was a way to show how people in Martinique behave with the sea around them. Culturally speaking, of course, with fishing, with many aspects, and sailing, of course, and even I interviewed a kite surfer, and so this is really was my first movie for TV, and if actually the first days of shooting, yeah, it was strange because I was the director with two people, two men. Far more professional than me, and I had to direct them, but they were nice, and
Uh-huh.
that was nice. And after, of course, there was the editing, and I finished. So the film was broadcasted. Though this was a nice souvenir, yeah, for me.
Okay, cool. So being a being a filmmaker in France, and you're a filmmaker of color, do you find it is it easy for you, or is there a lot of barriers to being a filmmaker in France as a person of color, you know,
Yeah.
navigating the industry in Europe, in France?
Um, there is a difference between then when I started and now, because when I started, it was in years 2000 years or 2003 when for example my first film was broadcasted, and in those years it was, I think, easier to become a director, a young director in especially in France, because even if I can say I shot most of my movies in Martinique, but I worked in Paris. I worked in my producers. Most of my producers were in Paris and in France because it was easier to be produced in Paris and to shoot in West Indies, such as Martinique, Guadeloupe, or other islands. And so when I started, I can say now, now I'm older. Yeah, it was easier, and maybe I was lucky because I could direct many movies in my first years, and I saw the difference. Even in 2010, it became more and more difficult, and today in 2020. It's far more difficult. I think if I was starting now, it would be much more difficult for many reasons. There are more directors, and so it's difficult. So to also answer to your question, because of course I'm a colored man, and uh, in France, yeah, we are not many. What I can say, especially in documentary movies. 20 years after, I can say we are not many more. There are some young people who are trying, and I'm happy with that. But many of them maybe will direct one or two movies and they will stop. It's sad, but it's like that. So I can say maybe I was lucky, and it's and as my mother was from Martinique and I directed most of my movies in Martinique, it was easier for me because I was shooting in Martinique. And that's why maybe as a colored man, but in Martinique, I could shoot movies that explain. Of course, if I was shooting more in France, it would have been more difficult for me.
Or would you say that in France it's more resources? Is it more of the government that issues you like say grants to do filmmaking as opposed to like private sector? Is it like resources? Is there less resources now than say when you started?
There are fewer broadcasters. This is the difference. When I started, there were local TVs where we that could grant and finance documentary movies, and now most of them disappeared. So
Hmm.
now, yes, if you want to film, you have to find national TV, and of course, it's more difficult. So that's the main difference. But I think that, yeah, in France, we are lucky in comparison with, of course, other countries, even with US or even with UK or other European countries. France is famous for its cinema industry, and yeah, we have many possible grants, fundings, and all that, but it doesn't mean that it's automatic. For each film, I have to write, I have to find a producer, and this is much work. But yeah, we can say in France there is a positive environment for the cinema. Yeah.
Would you say like today the atmosphere is more, I know you talked about your struggles and how it was easier when you first started and now that that a lot of televisions have disappeared. But I want to get a sense, like say if I'm let's say if I'm a filmmaker that's migrating to France to let's say do like regular films, not necessarily documentary. What is the landscape like? Would it be easier, or would you suggest that, find some place else than say, go to different European countries than France? What is the landscape like for like a newcomer?
Of yeah, so there are many ways to to answer. First, I would say I thought about the disappearing of TVs, but many festivals also disappeared, and so that explains that is more difficult in France. but I think it's the same maybe in other places. But in France, for example, for you or other people, the problem will be the language also because yeah. So for example, sorry for my French accent, but in France we like people like to speak French and not other languages. So if they are used to watching subtitled movies, but yeah, if the movie is not in French, it will be more difficult, not impossible, but more difficult to get an audience and to yeah to be just watching festivals and so it's it's not different for since for now, but yeah, it's maybe first. But is it different, for example, if you are in the US, if you're not American? Is it easier? I don't know. But the question of the language, yeah, is important.
I know for me as a filmmaker here in the United States, I'm in California and I've been doing this for a while. And the thing here is finance, right? If you can get finance, the government doesn't finance anything here. You know, you can there's like the states usually offer like incentive, like tax breaks and stuff like that.
Mm,
But you have to get a percentage of that before you can get a tax break, right? You already have to come up with some money. You already have to have investors before you can even start on a production. So it's very difficult here. It's very yeah, you have to have money in a way. If you don't have that money, life can be very difficult as an independent filmmaker. And like you say, a lot of the a lot of the studios here are merging because the landscape of cinema in the world, I guess, is changing with the
mm,
advent of streaming,
mm,
right? Everything is streaming service. You know, everybody's trying to get like on Netflix like that. So you have
mm,
everybody pulling towards like Netflix, and it's
mm,
very hard for like newcomers, like people with a passion for the
mm,
art of film, as
mm,
opposed to like, I don't know, trying to make a Disney movie or, you know, a
mm,
Marvel movie or Star Wars like that.
mm,
Yes, there's a market for that, but there's
mm,
still people that love film that want a story, you know, that
mm,
want to tell a story and want to convey
mm,
that to audience. And so it's
mm,
very difficult here. You know, I've
mm,
been doing it for a while. I've been an independent filmmaker for a while, and I've been able to survive, you know, because I also teach, right? And so that
mm,
allows me
mm,
to continue, right?
mm,
Doing my films. And I can share the same thing with you, like in saying, like when I began, it was much easier, right?
mm,
Today it's much more difficult, like I said, because of the finance and everything is getting smaller and everybody's merging. So it's
mm,
just less studios, you know.
mm,
You just have like three, four major studios and that's it, you know.
mm,
And back then, you had a lot of smaller production companies, but
mm,
yeah, you know, you know, that's the problem with filmmaking today. It's just getting that finance secured.
mm, mm,
But also, what I wanted to say when I first heard of you is through my festival I ran, you know, All Vision Caribbean Latino Film Festival, and I got to see your film. So I want to, you know, talk a little bit, you know, how I came about knowing your work, and it's
mm.
through the film. I want to pronounce it right. So if I don't pronounce it right, you can correct me here because I don't have notes in front of me right now. I think it's Cinema de Maria Josephine.
Yeah, because it's her first name, Marie Joseph.
Okay. And so I would like you to share with our audience, you know, the story of Marie Joseph and,
Yeah.
how that whole thing came about and what led you to do this documentary.
So, as I told you, yeah, I began to make documentary movies in the year 2003. Like you said, also I was not long, but I also was a teacher in more in a production aspect. Because if I'm not a director, I can be also what we call in France a production administrator. It's about accounting and payroll in on the shootings for feature film or soaps. So yeah, of course, I'm not only a director, but even if I'd like to, but it's impossible in France to be only.
Thank you for listening to the show. Follow and subscribe so you can know when part 2 will drop. This podcast has been brought to you by the 2026 All Vision Caribbean and Latino Film Festival, which is now accepting submissions on Film Freeway.